My last semester at a certain college, I was assaulted by a football player for walking in front of his car while he was trying to drive. Because he was bigger than me, the fight didn't end too well. While unconscious on the ground, I lived a different life. I met a wonderful young lady. She made my heart skip and my face red. I pursued her for months and dispatched a few jerk boyfriends before I finally won her over. After 2 years, we got married, and almost immediately she bore me a daughter. I had a great job, and my wife didn't have to work outside of the house. When my daughter was 2, my wife bore me a son. My son was the joy of my life. I would walk into his room every morning before I left for work and doted on him and my daughter. One day while sitting on the couch, I noticed that the perspective of the lamp was odd, like inverted. It was still in 3D, but just wrong. I was transfixed. I couldn't look away from it. The next morning, I didn't go to work. Something was just not right about that lamp. I stopped eating. I left the couch only to use the bathroom at first. Soon I stopped that too, as I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at the fucking lamp for 3 days before my wife got really worried. She had someone come and try to talk to me. By this time, my cognizance was breaking up and my wife was freaking out. She took the kids to her mother's house just before I had my epiphany. The lamp is not real. The house is not real. My wife, my kids. None of that is real. The last 10 years of my life are not fucking real. The lamp started to grow wider and deeper. It was still inverted dimensions. It took up my entire perspective. I heard voices, screams, all kinds of weird noises, and I became aware of pain. A lot of pain. The first words I said were, "I'm missing teeth," and opened my eyes. I was laying on my back on the sidewalk, surrounded by people that I didn't know. Lots of people were freaking out. I was completely confused. At some point, a cop scooped me up, dragged or walked me across the sidewalk and grass, and threw me face down in the back of a cop car. I was still confused. I was taken to the hospital by the cop. Seems he didn't want to wait for the ambulance to arrive and was given CT scans. I went through about 3 years of horrid depression. I was grieving the loss of my wife and children and dealing with the knowledge that they never existed. I was scared that I was going insane, as I would cry myself to sleep hoping I would see my family in my dreams. I never have, but sometimes I see my son, usually just a glimpse out of my peripheral vision. He is 5 years old and is saying something, but I can never hear what he says. Eventually, I did let go of the dream, but I always felt like a part of me was missing. Later on, throughout the year, I met a girl who would later become my wife. Now we have 1 kid and are getting ready to have a second, but it just doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm replacing the family I once knew. Eventually, I told my new wife about my thoughts, and she told me it was just a dream. I couldn't bear the thought of replacing the family that I once knew. But then I had an epiphany. Maybe if I was to get knocked out hard enough again, I would be able to go back to the way things were. So one night, I decided to go to the bar while my family was sleeping and pick a fight with the biggest person in the room. I walk into the bar and see this big guy with tattoos all over his body and decide he's the one. He seemed to be with his girlfriend, so I came up with an insult along the lines of him stealing my girl. He looked insulted and then got up to get physical with me. I didn't even try to block the punch. He hit me and everything went dark. When I woke up, I wasn't in the confront of the family I had so long ago, but rather the hospital. Luckily, they hadn't contacted my wife yet, so she wasn't here yet pampering me with questions. I broke down crying, wondering if this empty hole inside of me will ever go away.